Hello and welcome into the Calcio Connection podcast. We are connecting with you, Italian football fans from all over the world. Had to, what was that?
That was my.
Is that a soundbite of yourself?
I left my speaker on by accident.
Oh man, that's great.
My bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Alex Donno with you guys alongside Jerry Mancini, who's Leafs and Juve stink. I like the message you're sending. You know, Jerry, we're going to talk a little bit about the Mercato. Been pretty active so far for Inter. Been a little quiet so far for Lazio. But you know, just a few minutes ago, before we started, got a question in my Twitter inbox, my Twitter DMs, from someone who's a big Manchester United fan and was, asking me to rate Andre Onana, as it looks like in a matter of days, if not hours, Onana is going to be, leaving Inter for Man United on a transfer fee north of 50 million euros. I hate the fact that he's leaving Inter. I mean, I hate it. This is one of the best goalkeepers in world football, I believe. You saw how effective Onana was in helping Inter reach the Champions League final. He was probably, the MVP of that Champions League run. It just goes to show you that with Suning still around, you're going to have to make sacrifices if you want to make moves in the transfer market. In the case of Andre Onana, Inter brought him in last year on a free. So the entire transfer fee is profit. And, Suning cannot resist. They see those dollar signs in their eyes. They cannot resist that sort of a profit. But, I mean, to answer his question, Jerry, like this guy, I guess he legitimately didn't know much about Onana. He's like, is this guy any good? I'm like, yes, he's a stud. That's how I described him. Andre Onana is a stud, and they're going to like him a lot in Manchester. And, I'm going to miss him. I know that Inter is talking about Anatoly Trubin, who I've seen him play against Inter before, the Shakhtar goalkeeper, he's an excellent shot stopper, good Ukrainian international, but at the same time, I'm not expecting this guy, if he does end up being the replacement, I'm not expecting him to come in and fill the very big shoes of Andre Onana. So I hate to see that dude go. I hate to see him leave Inter. I hate to see him leave the Serie A.
I just don't understand. Like, I know we were talking about this off air, and Onana has been a big part of Inter, and you can probably say that he's like the fifth defender in the back end.
Yeah,
for Inter, and his
ball and also and the defenders, they play better knowing Onana's behind them, right? Because they at this point, Handanovic was great in his prime, but at this point, 2023, the defenders trust Onana more than they trust Handanovic.
Well, there was like a video on Twitter basically showing his distribution from the back end versus Man City and how important he was in order for his teammates to set up very quickly. And I think he has a good read for the game. But what I don't know is this Trubin guy. I know that everyone's so high about him, but I think Onana was like a big hit. And it's like Napoli. They are going to sell Kim Min-jae. And right. Joseph Fischetti on the Forza Napoli podcast had a really good breakdown. And you can sell him, but like, how do you replace him? Do you find another player that can be of that caliber and on a good price? I'm pretty sure that Inter had bought Onana for a not a steep price.
They got him on a free. Yeah, the agent fees and stuff, but they got him on a free. Yeah.
And to do that again is not easy, right? Yeah. So, and that's the same with Napoli. I don't think they spend a lot on Kim Min-jae. I know that I think they got him on a transfer, but like these guys are hard to get by. But that it just shows what the Serie A has become, though. It's like they're not financially stable enough to keep their players. And I think that if Inter wasn't in this situation of their owner, where his money is all tied up and he can't really spend it, I think they would be one of the few teams in Serie A right now spending a little bit more aggressively and not having to be so frantic and worried about having to sell their best players. So, yeah, it's interesting. But so let's, anybody who's watching, I'm curious, would you sacrifice not purchasing Lukaku if it means that you're able to keep Onana? I don't know if that would work or not, but
yeah, no, it would, because they're basically using the Onana money to try and purchase Luke. Chelsea's playing a little bit of hardball right now, which is their right, because they paid a lot for him 2 years ago. They're playing hardball, but Inter basically wants to use most of the Onana money on Lukaku.
Well, here's the problem. It's not just hardball. It's the fact that they know that when you spend 50, when you're earning 50 million, they're gonna try to reap all that money back from them, knowing that you have that money to spend now,
right?
Because you just profited on a sale.
Right.
So for me, I don't justify buying Lukaku for more than 10 million. I don't know. This guy screws you up. I feel like this guy screws you guys more than he actually helps you. How many times has he blocked a shot in key situations where it's prevented Inter from scoring?
Yeah, it's happened in
Like,
2 finals. It happened in a Europa League final, and it happened in a Champions League final.
like I don't get it, man. This guy is hilarious,
Yeah.
but like I know that Inzaghi really values his players, but I can. You telling me you can't find a striker for a more firm price and
Right.
more cheaper than what Lukaku really costs on the market? Like, and what do? Do you take him on loan again? Because that's the only way they're gonna
Well,
do it.
which I don't think Chelsea's going to allow that, but it's true, because like what you're saying, like when you break it down to actual value of a player, I totally agree with you to what you were angling at. I agree with Eduardo what he says here, that I'd rather keep Onana. Like if I have to choose Lukaku or Onana, I think Onana would be the guy that I would have to keep. But part of it with Lukaku is, he's really well liked by the locker room and by management, and he only wants to be at Inter, so that makes it a little bit more. Obviously, again, you don't take every player who wants to be part of your club, but I do think that Lukaku, bloopers aside, right, blocking goals aside, just at the wrong place at the wrong time, I do think he adds a lot of value to Inter's attack. It does make you feel good that Inter were able to get Marcus Thuram on that free, because I think he's going to be excellent in Serie A, and you still have Lautaro, of course. And I think we've still got the barbecue master hanging around, if I'm not mistaken. Dzeko is gone. So, you do need another forward. And obviously, the links have been to Lukaku. I'd be happy to have him. I just think, to what you're saying, Jerry, if you've got to pay around 40-45 million to buy him from Chelsea, because Chelsea doesn't want to be upside down on it. They're trying to recoup, what they paid for him 2 years ago after amortization. Like, they're trying to recoup that money and not be at a loss for him, so they're trying to get as much money as possible. But if I really had the choice, I would keep Onana and not make the 50+ million profit versus buying Lukaku for 40-45 million. I would keep Onana.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know people are going to say it's easy to find a goalkeeper to replace, but that's not necessarily true. I think Lazio is another prime example of how they found Providel, and they got him for very cheap. I think they got him for just under $3 million. It cost them, and then they bought Maximiano, who cost nearly $12 million, and hardly touched the pitch. So just because you think you're going to buy the best goalkeeper doesn't necessarily equate to being the best. Sometimes you just got to really do your due diligence to find the right player that really fits your system, right? So I haven't. The only things I've really focused on during the transfer market is like Savage primarily. I don't know too much of which goalkeepers are on the market. I've seen Fratesi going to Inter, which we're going to talk about. But the one thing I hate about the transfer market is that no one's right. I'm going to be honest. Like, they're all wrong. Like 90% of the time, it's like a guessing game. How many? I've seen DiMarzio and Padula link Lazio to every Tom, Dick, and Harry team player that I've ever seen in my life. Today, like Berardi is a prime example. We were apparently linked to this guy, and
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
For 100 times, and since then, Lazio's not going to buy a player. So here, this is a scenario, okay? Or not a scenario. Let's just look at this. So you have Inter, who got Fratesi on a loan with an obligation to buy.
Right.
they're not offering that to Lazio for Berardi. They're expecting Lazio to pay up front X amount of
Mm,
dollars.
mm,
So how does that make sense? Why would I want to do a business with a team which is expecting a loan for Fertezzi, who is younger too, and
right.
would be worth more, as opposed to Berardi, who's almost 30 and is already past his prime and is going on his downfall soon, and they want 30 million for him. Like it
That's a
doesn't.
great
I
point.
don't. I wouldn't. Me, if I'm Lazio, I
Right.
walk away.
Right,
I'm like,
which
okay,
is
like
like, and that's obviously a Sassuolo problem because you can't expect to do business a certain way with one club. And Sassuolo in recent years they've done so many deals with Inter that I think they've developed a good relationship. But what you're saying is 100% true. You can't do one type of deal with a certain club and then with another club you expect to do a deal that's worse for that club. They're gonna say, wait, how come you gave these guys a sweetheart deal? You won't give us a sweetheart deal.
yeah, I just
And also with
I know
Frattesi, I'm sure there was more competition. I mean, he might have what maybe helped seal the deal for a better bargain was, he and his agent saying they only wanted to go to Inter. That kind of stuff does help if you kind of narrow it down to one club. But at the same time, with Frattesi, there's more demand, I would think, than with Berardi being an older guy, where Frattesi is early 20s up and comer.
Oh, absolutely. On the topic of Fertezzi, do you think he will settle in and be very, how do I say this? You think he'll be calm and stable in that midfield between I would assume that he will play with Barella and
Yeah.
Chananoglu. Do you think that he'll struggle at times, considering that Inter is a step up? He'll be playing in Champions League. He'll be playing in more competition with Coppa Italia between the league, and I'm just curious because you had a guy like Brozovic, who, oh my god, like to replace Brozovic is it's like Lazio trying to replace Savage.
I do think that
Like
I think that they sold Brozovic at the right time because I think we started to see him still a maestro, right? Brozovic is still an excellent player, but I think we started to see just a little bit of a decline, more difficulty staying healthy, and also when Brozovic missed all that time, I thought Hakan actually did a really good job in the deep lying playmaker role. So I think that Inter are selling Brozo at the right time. If this had been a year ago, 2 years ago, it would have ripped my heart out of my chest. But to answer your question on Frattesi, Jerry, I could totally see what you're talking about happening. It's a huge step up in pressure. I mean, to go from the Mapei to the San Siro and to go from playing, one competition, well, I guess two competitions with Coppa Italia to throwing Champions League in that mix and all the extra pressure that comes with that. He's got some experience with the national team, which I think is important. But yeah, it's going to be a big step up. Hopefully he can build rapport with Inzaghi and company quickly. Because also the other thing about when you're starting out, at a club like Inter, and you've also got Mkhitaryan and Aslani in the mix in the infield. If you don't start well early, it may take you a long time to get a spot, right? If you're not, because this is not necessarily a situation where Frattesi comes in and just walks in to the starting 11. If you don't seize that opportunity may not come, and then the pressure is going to build even more if you're on the bench.
no, absolutely. I think that he needs to play regularly in order to get that familiarity with what Inzaghi is expecting. And I think there's a lot of players last year with Inter, like a lot of new signings that didn't really settle in their first season. I think that's because of what you said, not enough playing time. So
Yeah,
it,
think about Gosens, who's probably on his way out already, and
crazy.
yeah, which it's unfortunate, but it's just again, Federico Di Marco is one of the best stories in Italian football. I don't think anybody, well, maybe a few people did, but I don't think anybody predicted he would play as well as he did last year. And Aslani, I like Aslani's attitude, right? Because he didn't play much last season, but Aslani, who's very young, he's not stressed about it, Jerry. Like he wasn't seeing the pitch a lot, but he seemed to be perfectly cool. I'm okay getting a few substitution spots and kind of learning and developing. So he's got a great attitude. I don't know if Frattesi would have that same sort of attitude. I think he expects to factor in right away.
No, absolutely. And I'm not sure what system Sassuolo plays if they play a 3-5-2. I haven't done my homework on what, because I've taken the summer off, but I think that's another thing. If he doesn't play in a 3-5-2, maybe that might be an adjustment as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
From Sassuolo to Inter. I don't think many
I don't think
teams.
it is. Yeah, I don't think it is.
I don't think many teams still play the 3-5-2. It's not common, I would say.
More usually a 4-2-3-1 is like the most common these days.
Yeah, so I think even the adjustment of a formation might take some time for him, and I think Inter fans need to be patient with him, and can't be critical if he starts the season off poorly or slow. I think players need time to kind of adjust, right? So that's another thing as well for Frattesi. But this is a player who was linked to go to Milan, was linked to go to Roma, and of all teams he joins is Inter, which I think it caught a lot of Inter fans by surprise, probably too as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing, like as far as Frattesi goes, obviously a lot of Inter fans are excited, but at the same time, I've also seen a lot of Interisti that they have concerns about. Hey, is this one of those guys that's maybe a little bit overrated because he's Italian, right? I mean, a lot of people will bring up Locatelli, who played in the same midfield. Are we overhyping this guy a little bit because he's Italian? Because someone that a lot of Interisti really wanted. I think there's maybe a small chance he could actually also come to Inter, but I doubt it because the price tag is high. And it's Lazar Samardzic from Udinese, who was I think he was kind of the plan B option if the Frattesi deal didn't go through. And a lot of Inter fans like him better. Like they actually wanted this other guy over Frattesi. So hopefully he lives up to it.
No, absolutely. I guess you never know what you have, right, until you kind of like see it as the season progresses. I guess here's the thing: in Italy, we can't afford anybody. We're it's bad. Like teams are struggling to buy players, right? Look, you got Juventus buying what I think they've bought Timothy Way so far, and they re-signed Rabiot to a 1-year extension. I don't know anything else of what they've considered. I can't even believe they're able to buy Savage right now.
Yeah.
That surprises me for a team who's not even in Champions League. I don't know.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Like I don't know where they're getting this money from if they have a sale that they've considered, but I guess I can jump onto that and I think the whole Savage saga has to end for me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, it's because the last, it's probably Lotito playing hardball, but the last, some of the headlines I've read is that if their asking price is not met, he's not going anywhere.
I don't give a shit where he goes anymore. I used to care so much about not wanting to sell him.
Yeah.
And after watching this season of Savage, I don't want to just be that homer and says he sucks all of a sudden. He's not good anymore. He's this because he's going to be leaving. He is a very talented player. And I know that his agent is really effing him right now. And I don't know. I think so because I've heard stories that his agent hasn't done a really good job in order to find him a place. He has even received offers apparently from I've seen like reports, and like his agent flew out to London and talked to Chelsea to see if they wanted Savage. Apparently he's set on Juventus. He wants I think $5.5 million per season he would get, and they're offering Rovella apparently. There's Pellegrini, and I think 20 million euro. They were saying.
That would be quite a deal if they could get him for that.
I find it interesting. I know that Lotito really screwed up on this one because he really waited too long, and now he only has a year left on his contract. There's the possibility he could lose him on a free. There's also the possibility that doesn't really happen because maybe teams want to buy him now so they can avoid a bid, right?
Right.
Because his wages can go up. It can be a bidding process. His season didn't help him. I think it was a 6 out of 10 kind of season for me. It wasn't good compared to last year. He really struggled. So that kind of makes me think is his game starting to dip a little bit compared to what it was before. I think he's around 28 years old now, 27, 28.
He's still young, man. Yeah, but well, I guess
He's
a lot of
he's
mileage.
young.
A lot of
You're
mileage.
right. That's a lot of mileage. He's never really hurt consistently.
Yeah.
Like so, but you're up there in age. You're not far away from being 30, and
Right.
you've played a lot of games with Lazio. You've been there for 8 years now. Okay, that's just high. If he comes back another year, it's 9 years at Lazio. What I don't understand is why would you want to go to Juventus when they're not even in Champions League?
Yeah, he could be in Champions League by staying at the club he's at.
Yeah, that's one. Or just
Yeah.
wouldn't you rather want to join a club that has higher ambitions? I'm not saying Juventus is not an ambitious club, but in the situation that they are in, they're in a rebuild process. We don't know if they're going to make it after this year, especially how Allegri coaches and his ideas and his tactics.
I can't believe he's still there with all the other changes that are happening around him. I guess they can't afford to sack him.
Oh, his wages are ludicrous.
Yeah.
Like that's it's insane. I don't know who the hell gave that contract. It's an idiot.
That's true.
That's a whole different. I digress. But my point is that let's just hypothetically say he goes to Juve now. Okay, next season he's not in Champions League again.
Right.
Once in the last 9 seasons he will be in Champions League. Like I'm just saying, like, is this a player who's not ambitious to play in a bigger competition? Like, am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong about this, but like I know that the player himself would get paid ransomly, like a good wage to be at Juventus, and I know that he's been offered apparently 15 million a year to play in Saudi Arabia, and he's contemplating that now.
Yeah,
and I know that he wants to. Again, and I shouldn't say he wants to. I guess he's contemplating, but is what the report is. But like, I don't know. I just it's funny because like I'll switch it to this now. Luis Alberto extends his contract for another 2 more years, gets a bump in his pay, $4 million a year. Could have gone to Saudi Arabia, decided to stay with Lazio, and I always thought, and you said this too off air. I always thought that Alberto would be gone before Savage. And after everything that's gone on in the last 7 years of will he stay? Will he not? This is the first summer where I've seen a player, Alberto specifically, commit to a team, commit to Lazio, very fast. And the contract didn't like alleviate into the season where I'm not happy, I'm not this. He didn't come to training camp. Well, actually, they haven't had training camp yet, but he hasn't caused any problems yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's a positive sign of showing what his relationship is with Sarri. And the two have really gone from very negative to very positive. And I think that's very important for Lazio as well. Whereas I have a friend of mine at my store who plays professional soccer / football, however you want to say it. And he plays in the second division of Croatia.
Nice.
And I saw him. He's Brazilian. He played in Brazil as well. I wish I remembered his name, and I don't remember. But it was interesting. We were talking a couple of weeks ago, and he came to visit because it's the off season now. And the first thing he said to me is he hated his agent. He's like, I never knew how important it is to have an agent who has the best interest for you and him.
Right.
And he's been trying to change agents, he told me. And the problem with agents is that their interest is solely on them.
Yep.
They don't care about the player because they get fees on where you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not North America where it's a salary cap and the firm is separate. The agent's separate from the team. You know what I mean? So if Connor McDavid signs with Edmonton for 8 years, there's no agent fees that has to be negotiated between the club and
it's the same. It's the same fee if he signs $8 million max there versus somewhere else. The agent fee's the same.
And I think that's something that has to be fixed between leagues. And I think that's something that North American sports do really well. I don't understand. Why should the team be responsible for agent fees? I don't
Yeah.
get that. Like if the player is hiring the agent to represent them, shouldn't they and the player be like kind of
Right.
like
Should come out of his end, right? A
yeah,
percentage. Yeah.
I don't get that. Like that's something that I don't understand. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, but I just find it really it makes it difficult for teams to kind of sign players. And I think this is where Savage is in a really difficult situation where I think his agent is looking at to get him the best price and him to get the best fees. Like that's just how I look at this. I don't think his agent's really good because this has been dragging on for 4 or 5 years.
Dude, does he
I
have a big time agent, or is it like a buddy of his
I
from
think it's a
Serbia or
buddy. It's like
something? Yeah.
Kesman. I think it's Kesman. I
Mm,
think he's Serbian or something, but like
yeah.
I don't know exactly. But it's funny. He's been linked to Juventus since
Oh,
2018.
forever. Yeah.
So it's funny that today was he signed a contract with him until 2027, and this guy Emco basically tweeted out that he's been signed with them since 2018. That's what it feels like.
Wow. Yeah. So,
Every summer, all you hear is Man United or
yeah, that's right.
Juventus. So
That's right.
I don't know. What do you think? I think you sell the player and get rid of him.
Yeah,
I think
I think
it's
so
a
too. Yeah, I think if he at this point, I think it's run its course. He doesn't particularly want to be there. I think you move on. That's why a lot of sport, not all, but a lot of sporting directors have the will of the player thing. If the will of the player is to leave, they try to accommodate. All right, my friends, I want to send a huge thank you and shout out to everybody who made the Calcio Connection part of your day. Jerry, anything you want to plug or promote? You're on Threads now. I'm on Threads. We're having
it's
a
the
good
worst
time.
thing ever.
It is. I don't
We
understand
can.
why people are so excited about this thing.
I think we have a minute or two. We can talk about this. We can go
Yeah,
off topic. Oh,
sure.
Elon Musk versus Sucker Baby. Who wins a fight? I take Musk.
I don't know, man. All I know is Zuckerberg has been training jujitsu for years. I don't know about Musk's background in martial arts, but I know Zuck. I know Zuck is trained, so I'd probably root for Elon, but I think Zuckerberg might win.
I don't know, man.
Who's
Has
bigger?
Zucker,
I don't know. I've never seen him stand.
who's
I've never seen
smarter?
him fight. Ooh, I don't know. Man, because a lot of people will say, I think Elon's really smart. A lot of people say, oh, he ripped off all of his ideas. But I watched the fucking movie. Zuckerberg ripped off Facebook from the twins. So,
I think that. I was talking to my friend about this actually at work, and he's like, he's Trump 2.0. He's very Elon Musk is very manipulative, and he knows how to like persuade people and making them think that he's so smart. But apparently, the guy is like has no money to his name.
Really?
Well, not that he doesn't have no money. He doesn't have any like liquid. He's got no liquid. That's
it's all
the problem.
invested in
It's all invested.
Yeah.
So the problem is with apparently, did you see how he's not been paying Google?
Yeah.
Google hasn't been paid
for the Twitter integration.
Yes. So for people who don't know, Google basically kind of takes away like manipulation, like violence and like scams and spam and everything on like Twitter, and they're like a background who kind of like cleans everything up. And they had an agreement that was supposed to be either renewed or not by the end of June. So I don't know, but apparently the whole problem with the last Saturday where the high rates, it was all because Google didn't get paid, so they kind of shut down their platform. They kind of screwed Twitter over. That was the whole. That's
I didn't know why that.
Yeah.
All I know is I didn't have any problems with my Twitter. I know I kept seeing people say like they couldn't read tweets and stuff. Maybe I'm just not on there enough, but I had no problem reading tweets. I don't pay for the Twitter Blue. I have a basic account these days. I didn't have any issues with my account last week. None.
I wouldn't even pay Twitter Blue if my life depended on it.
I wouldn't either. It's ridiculous. I mean, and you can still use it for free. I'm not going to pay I don't know if it is $8, $10. I'm not going to pay that.
More.
Just so I can write
like
longer
15.
tweets. Well, that's probably your Canadian fake money is probably what it is. It's not worth as much as my real US dollars.
Imagine paying $15 a month. It's like paying Netflix.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I do pay Netflix.
There you go. Would you rather have Netflix?
Yeah.
And watch
right. Yeah.
What's his name there? That funny comedian, that white dude. I forget his name. Oh man, he's the bald guy.
Oh,
This guy's own podcast too.
Joe Rogan?
No, I hate that
The
guy.
other guy. Yeah, I know who
Yeah.
you're talking about.
I was watching him last night.
Bill Burr?
Yeah, Bill Burr's
He's
awesome.
funny. He's so funny.
Nah, Joe Rogan's too
I love him.
political. I can't. I don't like that. But I guess that's all I have. I have nothing to plug, man. I'm not writing right now.
All right. Well,
Couldn't care
you can.
less.
I mean, make sure you follow Jerry on Threads and follow us on,
Don't follow me on
Twitter and
Threads.
Threads. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of the Calcio Connection podcast. Ciao.